Good afternoon. This is Media Center Ukraine, Odesa. We continue our work. This briefing is dedicated to the new border crossing system, eCherga, Equeue, and the issues related to implementation thereof. Our guests are Andriy Artemenko, Acting Deputy Head of Odesa Customs Service, Regional Office of State Customs Service of Ukraine, Kostyantyn Myronov, Head of the State Supervision Department in Odesa Region of the State Service of Ukraine for Transport Safety, and Oleksii Skrypchenko, Manager of the Logistics Department of Blasko Transport Company, LLC. Good afternoon. I will be the first to talk, and I would like to share a few details about the Equeue. This is a free online service for the truck drivers, especially developed for Ukrainian border crossing points. eCherga project is implemented by the Ministry of Infrastructure of Ukraine, and it is aimed at turning physical queue of truck drivers into virtual one. This is about the comfort and the possibility to plan. The project has been implemented in 16 BCP, including 4 international road BCP in Odesa, including Orlivka и Sakcha, Reni Giurgiuleshti, Starokazachia Tudora, and Vinogradivka Vulkaneshti. Using the eCherga service, the carriers can sign up for an electronic queue at the selected border crossing point to monitor the queue online and to arrive at the BCP at the specified time. I would like to say at once that eChegue does not speed up the movement of the car. The speed can be changed because it can be limited by the capacity of the BCT and the activities of the State Customs Service and the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine. But the system offers different conditions for border crossing. The process becomes more comfortable. Carriers can plan their time, and truck drivers do not have anymore to spend several days at the border and to sleep there. It is forbidden to wait on the roadside in the general queue. Drivers can arrive only after receiving an invitation to enter. And you can imagine, we used to have the 5-kilometer or 10-kilometer queues. There is no more queue, so there are no damages to the roadside. There is no litter which is left by drivers. This improves the environmental situation, and there is no queue of the trucks and emissions. The project is regulated by the relevant regulations and the constitutions of Ukraine. As for Uktrtransbezpeka in this area, the decree of the Cabinet of Ministers 103 of 2015 and decree 1349 and resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers amending the mentioned decree number 452. Orlivka и Sakcha and Reni Giurgiuleshti are the most loaded border crossing points. At other BCPs, there are no representatives of our service, Uktrtransbezpeka. The decree of Cabinet of Ministers 1349, which defines the procedure and envisages that Uktrtransbezpeka provides services that provides information support to the market, including carriers and drivers. Directly at BCPs, we disseminate printed materials. There, we monitor the queue of trucks. We verify the information which is included by drivers at eCherga app, and we also verify for errors. for drivers not to register for Equeue once again, because if there are errors, the turn is cancelled and the driver should start the process from all over again. Uktrtransbezpeka has an official Facebook page. We have a Telegram channel. We inform about the conditions of the queue, the amount of trucks in queue, how many of them cross the border daily, so you can find all the information related to Equeue there. So the work of the project is transparent to the maximum extent possible, and together with the national police, we prevent violation of legislation when it comes to the violation of traffic rules, the destruction of roadside, and the parking rules. How does eCherga work? You can register for eCherga or Equeue at the website eCherga.gov.ua. You can just Google that website. There are instructions how to join the electronic queue in Ukrainian, English, and Polish languages. So we are going to add more languages. There is also a video instruction telling about how to get in queue and making the process very simple for drivers. At the first entry, you must specify email, phone number, passport data for drivers. For Ukrainian conscripted carriers, passport and vehicle data can be automatically pulled from the application for crossing the border. Then you need to specify vehicle data, cargo data, customs declaration, or if there is no customs declaration, you should indicate without cargo. If there is no truck in the electronic system, Equeue, such truck is not allowed by the State Border Protection Authorities, the State Border Service, to enter the international border crossing point through the state border of Ukraine. So we recommend the driver to register in the electronic queue and to get to the nearest parking lot and wait for the turn. So Equeue is now the only way now for trucks to cross the border. Yes. And now we are talking only about trucks. So there is no alternative. If you want to cross the border with your truck, you need you must register in Equeue to left Ukraine. Unforeseen changes in the situation that slow down traffic can also occur on the territory of the border crossing point in our country or at the site of the border crossing point of a neighboring state. The electronic system accumulates an array of data and adapts to changes in vehicle speed at the border crossing point and in the neutral zone between BCPs with the neighboring state. Carriers can just follow the progress of the queue online at eCherga.gov.ua, in particular in their personal accounts. If the turn is cancelled, you need to start the process all over again. Uktrtransbezpeka allows to cross the border only to those drivers who are registered in the program. The time can change and it will be reflected in the app. If the driver registered without cargo and the system shows the existence of the customs cargo declaration, this is believed to be an example of unreliable data and grounds for automatic cancellation of the queue. The data entered by the driver must be identical to the data contained in the documents. If the driver registers with the non-existence already used in customs cargo declaration, he will not be able to register. If the queue does not move, vehicles cannot get to the border crossing point, and the system does not count this time for entry. Uktrtransbezpeka checks whether the carrier is on time. If the carrier misses his turn, the system cancels his turn, and he must re-register. Drivers must keep track of the time of their turn individually the driver can register for only one queue at one border crossing point. The system is configured for perishable goods, in which case vehicles are automatically distributed in queue at the rate 1 to 5. We started on the 8th of May. eCherga has been introduced in our oblast, so there is no live queue at our border crossing points. There is only Equeue there. As for advantages, I think my colleagues can provide more information. And I can say that advantages of Equeue for drivers is that it allows time management and to plan their trips, not to waste time on the right side. This is also the issue of safety and security. And this is a comfortable process of registration in the app. As for the state, there is the elimination of physical queues, analysis of traffic flows, arrangement of transportation, reduction of corruption risks, ability to monitor the situation in the border in real time. This is an innovative digital product, reduction of CO2 emissions, and the ability to quickly respond to changes in the process of crossing the border and to separate flows. What are advantages for business? Reduce losses due to demurrage, optimized business processes, transparency and equal rules for everyone, and stabilized transportation prices. We will provide floor to representatives of business, but I have some clarification questions to you. How do you plan time when a person should leave the waiting site to join the queue? So this should be calculated by the driver. For example, it can take like 4 hours. This is the first question. And the second question, and I don't know the details, there is also a different number of passenger cars at PCPs. Do you have a separate queue or lane for trucks there, not to be affected by the number of motor cars? Thank you for your question. As for the questions, as for the first one, after registering in the Equeue, the driver gets a push message or SMS. Carrier can also get such messages, and a person that controls the trip. The app informs all the time the driver about the progress of the queue and reminds about the time. If the time changes, the driver can get a message to understand when he should reach the queue at the border crossing point. As for your second question, all border crossing points have its specifics. And I think that the colleagues can share more details with you. There is eCherga, Equeue for trucks. As for motor cars, they cannot be registered for now for Equeue, so they are not involved in the traffic. If there are 2 lanes, there is a separate lane for trucks and a separate lane for all other vehicles, up to 7.5 tons. If this is only 1 lane, and they cannot have a separate lane for trucks at BCP, then this will be a general lane, and we have recommendations for drivers, but it is not related to our regions. So there is a recommendation for vehicles weighing more than 7.5 tons to be registered in Equeue. Now I would like to give floor to Andriy Artemenko, Acting Deputy Head of Odesa Customs House. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'd like to say that there are 4 BCPs in Odesa region, which are the area of responsibility of Customs House, that have Equeue. I'd like to say that there are 10 such BCPs in Ukraine. It's for an alternative route. So it is at those border crossing points where there is no Equeue so far. I would like to remind you that there are 4 BCPs: Reni Jurdulest, Reni Customs Post of Odessa Customs House, Starokazachia Tudora Belgorod-Dnistrovsky Customs House, Orlivka Sakcha, this is Orlivka Customs House, and Vinogradivka Vulkanest Ismail Customs Post. So there is no Equeue at Palanka. Yes, you are right. When we were preparing to the introduction of the new service, we discussed this issue with our colleagues from the west of Ukraine to take into consideration all the issues. And we can say about a significant positive result, even when it comes to activities, to the customs activities. I should say that the customs service works with those vehicles that have been allowed at BCPs. This is the task of the State Border Guard Service, Ukrtransbezpeka, and National Police to allow vehicles to BCPs. But at night we can have cases when BCPs are almost empty, and the activities have increased, as well as the amount of vehicles crossing the border. This ensures some discipline for a customs officer, because customs officers, when they know that they have 10-15 minutes till the next car, they become more responsible for their duties. There were some fears with regard to whether this Equeue could have a positive impact for Orlivka BCP, because this is not a classical road BCP, this is a ferry BCP. So we have our fears as well as the owners of BCPs, and this is an example of private-public partnership. This is a private BCP. Also, there are representatives of all controlling bodies there. I'd like to say that the amount of trucks leaving the customs territory of Ukraine through that BCP has increased. Before Equeue, there were around 70 trucks due to lack of proper rhythm of border crossing. Now we have more than 100 of trucks. As of today, 107 trucks have left Ukraine through Orlivka BCP. And this is a positive result, because from the 1st of June, it is planned to introduce one more ferry, which is smaller than we have now, at the same BCP, to have one more ferry there. Yes, you're perfectly right. We will have there additional ferry. It is a bit smaller than the one we have now, but we plan to increase the capacity up to 120 vehicles leaving Ukraine. I would also like to bring your attention to the fact that now we are able to avoid some conflicts at BCPs when drivers were drunk when reaching BCPs. I don't see any I don't see any connection here. Registering through the app doesn't mean that a driver cannot be drunk. The first line is the National Police and Укртрансбезпека. Those drivers who have some problems, who are drunk, or who don't have permissions, not only because of our national rules, but because of the rules of the neighboring countries and international rules, just are not allowed at BCBs. And now I can give floor to the business representative. What can you say about the new system, and what are the positive and negative impact of the system? Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I would like to thank the state for introducing the eCherga, Equeue, because it has increased the speed of border crossing. And I can say that around 2-3 weeks ago, the track was 40 kilometers at Orlivka BCB. And we had to go to the neighboring settlement in a queue. So the length of the queue was around 40 kilometers, yes, and it was up to 5 days. And now it was up to 20 days. Because sometimes our drivers had to spend 3 weeks to reach Orlivka BCB. And we can now see a significant improvement, reducing costs for fuel, for driver fees, and other issues. And alcohol, yes, it's a problem for drivers. The problem has been fully solved. The Equeue was introduced at the Orlivka BCP only 5 days ago. That's why we do not have the precise calculations. But we can generally see that when we can provide more precise information to our customers, we can provide precise time of our truck, about our truck reaching the port or some other place. Because when the queue is long, there are conflicts, there are emergency situations, there are accidents, causing problems for our customs and freight forwarder. That's why Equeue has significantly helped to mitigate risks. And Equeue allows drivers to plan their time. They don't have now to spend weeks in queue without any possibility to earn money or to see their family members. They can plan their time, they can spend time with their families or with other drivers at a parking lot, and just to monitor the progress of the queue. The eCherga was introduced on the 8th of May, and I was the responsible person. There was a problem that I saw. Many drivers had have problems with applying, and I apply on their behalf. And drivers cannot put themselves in that queue, could not register themselves. We had a case when I called a driver, when I provide details of how to register, he said okay, but in 2 days he came to us saying that he was not able to register, so we missed 2 days back then. So the question is, could in the future we, as an enterprise, as a company, make our own queue on behalf of our drivers, for our drivers to get push messages? Because now our drivers can register their vehicles and to get information about the day and time. And the driver can just miss the turn because they do not know how to use that push messages. I would like to respond to the question at once. Representatives of Ukrtransbezpeka at Orlivka BCP, at Reni BCP have the following task, is to assist drivers in registering and to provide information to drivers about how they can do this. And our employees say that quite often they work with the drivers, they help them to make corrections and to explain generally how the system works. Now, as for now, I can recommend carriers to provide information about logging in a passport to your drivers, for your drivers to be able to see the progress of the queue. We have been accumulating our experience to use it to update the app itself. I would like to say that you can email the project support group. I will provide the email to you. You can also address our multi-channel hotline for carriers 048-334-4304 and mobile line 067-120-0483. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to address us, our hotline that operates 24/7, and our staff will be able to provide clarifications and more details about the operation of the app and how the information sent by the app can be used. I think that since the December of last year or January this year, at Yagodin BCP, the pilot Equeue has been operative. And using an example of that Equeue, we were able to see the efficiency of the project. And I would like to thank you for the project, because now we can fully control our trips. We can provide access for our clients to the Equeue and to avoid additional issues with the customs and border guard issues. And as a carrier, as a representative of business, I want to thank you for the system. We have been testing all BCPs all over Ukraine and for around a week, and we can see significant results. Usually, when a service like that is introduced, we cannot avoid errors, and in this case, the situation is almost perfect. I would like also to say, as a carrier, that there are some issues at the BCP. If there are changes with the driver, I had the following cases. So we had the driver just the same as mentioned at customs declaration. Another case, the driver is the same, but the vehicle mentioned in the declaration is different. And we understand that there can be some breakdowns, and we need sometimes to change trucks. And of course, the probability of the breakdown for such trucks is very high. So what do we usually do in such cases? We send an official letter to the customs service with our stamps informing about the change of vehicle. We provide information about the vehicle and the driver. And the letter allows the driver to cross the border in such a case. But I had a case when there was another driver, another vehicle, and another trailer. Because we had to reload due to the breakdown, and customs officers refused to allow the border crossing. The border guard services, the border guard service referred to Ukrtransbezpeka. Ukrtransbezpeka referred to the border guard officers. I understand that the system is new, and in this case we cannot change the declaration, and the Equeue gets information from the customs declaration. And because if there are some discrepancies, the application cannot be registered in the app. And we used the different system, which is called Shlach, and we tested different cases. We provided letters with clarifications, but there were significant delays for the driver. So I don't remember the name of the official, but I think that I was able to head to reach one of the managers of Ukrtransbezpeka in the region, and only after that they allowed our driver and truck to cross the border. We have one of the biggest fleet in Ukraine, more than 120 vehicles, trucks, and of course we cannot avoid changes of trucks because there can be accidents, breakdowns, etc. And in this case, we cannot update customs declaration, and every day we face such issues. The Ministry of Digital Transformation is responsible for developing this app. And at our meetings with the representatives of the ministry, we discuss all these issues. Anatoly Komirny personally participates during our meetings. As for the change of the truck, of the engine, you can change it. We have the examples at Palanka, Boza crossing point, and some other cases. But it is not envisaged by the Equeue to change the trailer. We have been discussing the issue. So if there are some issues, you can change the tractor. And I would like to offer you to call our hotline. We work 24/7, and our staff is always ready to support you. They can even connect you to the representative of the Ministry of Digital Transformation, the person responsible for this part of our work, which is directly related to the app. They say now that they are going to introduce the possibility to substitute the trailer, but it is not the issue now. So if you change the trailer, you need to cancel your registration and to re-register. So no mechanism for changing trailer is possible at the moment. I can just make an offer from the point of view of the State Customs Service. For example, the containers have their own unique number. If there is no access to loading site, if there is just a change of the active vehicle, these changes are possible. Perhaps we can include in the Equeue not only the number of a vehicle, but also the number of a container. Yes, that could be really very helpful. And this is a great example. Thank you. I have only one question, which has been sent by a journalist. How many vehicles have crossed the border at BCPs with the Equeue, starting from the 8th of May, when the Equeue was introduced? Equeue was not introduced on the 8th of May. At Reni and Orlivka BCPs, there were some delays. But the general questions, how many trucks have crossed the border using the Equeue since the first day? Several thousand. Just not to deceive our audience, I can say that several thousands and around 100 trucks per day, from 70 to 100 trucks per day through Orlivka and 60 through Reni BCP. And there are two more BCPs, Starokazachia Tudora and Ivanogradivka Vulkanishty. The capacity of every BCP now is around 100 trucks per day. No. At Starokazachia BCP and at Vinogradivka BCP, the amount of trucks is significantly less. It's from 25 to 50 trucks per day. At Vinogradivka, from 8th of May to 15th of May, there were in total 500 vehicles. So we can tell you about the total number, several thousands. Thank you very much for joining us today. The next briefing will take place in 25 minutes, and we will have with us volunteer from Lutsk, chaplain, so stay tuned.